Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Pearson English Assessment summer session. Every Tuesday throughout the summer, we've been looking at different aspects of English language assessment and how assessment can be used to support and drive success at each stage of the learning journey. Today we'll be getting to know English Benchmark Young Learners, the fun gamified test of English language ability for children, delivered on a tablet. And in a slight change to the programme, we'll be hearing from Marian Martin today. Marian is product specialist for English Benchmark Young Learners here at Pearson. She also works on TEL, the new level and benchmark tests, and the Versant suite of assessments. She's been with us for 3 years and working with assessment services for 8 years in total, which has included roles with the UK education charity and a major university publisher. So just some quick housekeeping before we get started. There'll be some time for Marian to answer your questions at the end of the session, so please feel free to submit those in the questions box at any time during the talk. The webinar will be recorded and available shortly afterwards on our website in case you'd like to share it with colleagues or watch it again. And you'll also receive a certificate of attendance via email after the session. So now I'm happy to pass it over to Marian.
Hello, thank you, Sophia. Yes, so as Sophia said, today I'm going to talk to you about English Benchmark Young Learners. And in this presentation, we're going to cover just a little bit of background about Pearson English for people who may not be familiar with us. We're going to have a deeper look at what English Benchmark Young Learners actually is, have a quick look at some of the content in the test, and the main focus is going to be on scoring and reporting because it's that formative information that gives you the real value and really helps your teaching. Then we'll scoot through how it works and a couple of points on best practice. So, excuse me. I have hay fever, so I apologise if I keep coughing throughout the webinar. Some of you may already know a bit about Pearson English, so just to give you a bit of an overview, we're a global organisation. We have around 72 offices around the world, and our products are used in more countries than that. So we are a global company, and our aim is to support learning to help people reach their potential. So this includes services for the individual learners and for teachers like yourselves, as well as business organisations who are trying to recruit staff and governments. I use the word services because when it comes to assessment, we really do assessment as a service. A book may be something you buy and you use and you're familiar with and you use that book time and time again, but with an assessment, we are with you from the point at which you start learning to use the system, onboard your students, to when you get those test results and to making sure that those test results are working for you. So we really do regard this as a service that we're working together on. And Pearson, all our services are backed by experts in teaching and assessment and language learning and technology, because we do use advanced technology in our systems. And we have a wide range of services that cover the whole of the learning journey. So whether that's somebody's 5 or whether they're 55. And all our services are underpinned by the global scale of English. Again, lots of people may already be familiar with the global scale of English, and I know that there are some other webinars on it. And I'm sure that Sophia can provide more information about them. So I'm just going to touch on a few points about it for those who need a little bit more background. So the global scale of English is an English language scale that's based on the Common European Framework. So where the Common European Framework has 6 large bands, we've broken that down to a scale of 10 to 90. So all of those increments, so you can measure incremental steps in learning. So it's quite a granular scale, and it was produced by research which involved over 6,000 teachers in 50 countries working with our assessment experts to help us raise the standards in teaching and learning. And I think mainly one of the key advantages of this is it takes a long time to move up a band in the CEFR. So you could start at B1 and stay at B1 for quite a while. And that's not very motivational, and it doesn't really tell you what you can do differently. So by breaking the global scale of English down into smaller learning objectives, you can measure incremental steps. So you can see that you've gone up 4 points, 5 points, 6 points, which is a lot more helpful to the student. And you can actually see the type of things that you can do that you've mastered, as well as the things that you still need to do.
Marian, sorry, Marian, I'm not sure if you're intending to be sharing slides at this point, but I can only see the front slide, the front page.
Right. I'm sharing my. How's that? Is that any better?
No.
It says I'm showing my screen.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologise for that, everybody. Expert in technology, not in using GoToWebinar. I'm really sorry about that. I could flick back and show you the slide that you just missed, but I won't spend your time on that because we've got a lot to try and get through. But I will just, I was talking about the global scale of English and how products fit in with the assessment journey. And we have products that fit in the place category. We sort of divided the journey into 4 areas. So place, so that's about placing students in the class right at the start. So from the very start, they're in the right class when they start learning English. So the lessons aren't too easy or too hard for them, that it doesn't become demoralizing and there's no issues when they have to about moving classes later on. Then we have products which help you measure proficiency and progress and can be used to help students prepare for exams as well. So we call that the benchmark section. Then there's certifying tests. So these are tests which help students take exams. So these are formal qualifications such as a Pearson English test. Excuse me, the Pearson English International Certificate Test and the Young Learners Test we offer so that people can prove their ability and their potential to employers and to schools. And these assessments are, finally, we have the Verify test. So these assessments are really the very high stakes tests, such as Pearson Test of English Academic, which is used to prove somebody's ability. Should they be going on to further studies? Should it be required for jobs or visa if people are trying to emigrate or gain access to work in another country? Wow, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, my screen seems to be sticking a bit. Okay. So I mentioned the products and where they, the overall sort of categories of tests that we provide to assess people as they advance. And you can see English Benchmark Young Learners is a progress test for 6 to 14-year-olds. And it might help somebody to say move on to the international certificate tests. Later in the learning, they might take the benchmark test as well. So what is English Benchmark Young Learners? English Benchmark Young Learners is an English language test that children take on an app. It is designed to be engaging and it's designed to make assessment stress-free. One of the key reasons for that is the more relaxed students are, the more natural the performance they give, and you get a much better idea of their abilities. So students complete activities on an app, and that measures ability in speaking, reading, listening and writing skills. And this test was created by assessment experts who score over 50 million online tests a year normally, and So this is a world-class test produced by the same people who work on PT Academic and score that, and work on our other tests such as Level and Benchmark and Versant. So what does the test do? Well, it measures, you can use it as a one-off test to measure students' proficiency at some point, or you could use it to track their progress over time. It provides, as well as testing the 4 skills, it gives you an analysis of the student's strengths, so that sort of can-do statements or performance summaries. And then it gives you some recommendations for improvement based on those can-do statements. And should you be using Pearson courses, you can also see activities in courseware which will help you support the planning. And I'm going to talk quite a lot about those can-do statements and those recommendations, because that's what we think is really going to help you with your lessons, and with both at the class level and for each individual student. The test uses quite engaging graphics and some fun activities in there. It also has some videos, and these are suitable for students of different ages. So it might start with some sort of cartoon style images, and then they get more sophisticated as you move up the levels. So these activities can help students engage with the test. Young learners like to be very active, they like to be doing things, and I think that's one of the things that Jenny Leontu talked about in her talk a little while ago, and I think that's probably still available if you want to see it. So it really helps the students feel motivated and move through the test. The results are delivered really quickly, and they're generally available in minutes, and you get those reports available within minutes because of the benefits of the auto marking. And as I say, we score it on a global scale of English, so and we show people the CEFR band as well, and we'll look at this as we go through when we look into the reports later. But that helps you demonstrate this using this independent test really helps you demonstrate your ability, the student's ability rather, to your stakeholders and their parents. So for teachers, you can see how people have improved, and it's motivating, but it also helps you demonstrate the efficacy and the impact that your teaching is having. And as mentioned, that there are reports, and when we go through, we'll see that there are not just reports for teachers, but there are ones you can give to parents and some certificates for students as well. The test is based on a number of different principles, and some of those are drawn from game design. And I'm mentioning gaming and engaging and fun quite a lot, but this is a serious test. It is a proper test. We've just learned from, and are we using principles from games to help us keep students' attention and motivate them to complete the test and fulfill each task. So it's got some great graphics, some animations and videos. I mean, I really like some of the pictures that are in there, I must admit. And the idea is that it helps students feel like they're playing a game instead of taking a test. A lot of the scenes and the objects that you're seeing there will be familiar to students, regardless of where they are in the world. And it also has some different accents in there and a mixture of people. So it is designed to be international. And our user experience team, as well as our experts in creating tests and writing questions, our user experience team understand how people interact with technology, how learners at different ages interact with it, so they can make sure it's simple to navigate, and people can move through the test quite seamlessly. I mentioned before, so I'll talk a bit more about the test itself. The test is taken on a free app that you can download. You have to pay for the tests, but the app and the sample questions in there are free to take. Teachers use a school portal to manage the students, allocate them tests, and generate test codes. So when you use the portal, you assign a test to the student, and that give them a test code. You give that student that test code and they enter the test code into the front of the app. So no usernames, no passwords, nothing that people have to remember, which can be a painful experience in a classroom. They just have to enter a few numbers. And at the start of the test, there are some instructional videos before each new item to tell you about the test, but also before each new question type, so students understand how to work their way through the test and understand how the questions could be answered. But again, there are sample questions and free practice tests in the app, and it's really important that people familiarise students with the tests using them. The practice tests aren't scored, they can be taken multiple times, but it will really help students understand what they're going to do when they take the real tests. And the questions themselves in the tests combine skills, so it might test listening and speaking, listening, speaking and reading at the same time, which is a reflection of real proficiency, somebody's ability to put their skills together. And it also keeps the test shorter. It's quite unusual to have these integrated questions, but by keeping the test short, it really helps for young learners. So have a quick look at some of the items in the test, some of the things that children will experience. So as I said at the start, we test all 4 skills. So if you just start by looking at listening, throughout the test, students will be asked to listen to prompts and then respond. And they might be responding by looking at a picture and then acting. So it could be look at the picture, the instruction tells you to move something from a table to a chair, and people drag and drop the object across. So it tests their ability to listen. They might be able to answer a specific question. So in this particular image, the students may be asked to say how many boys there are in the picture, or what are the boys doing. They could be given a sentence that they're asked to repeat, or they might be given some information about a particular scenario and asked to respond. What would they say next? What would they do? How would they answer their friend? So there's a variety of questions in there. For testing reading, students may be asked to read words or sentences, and as they move up the levels, so the level of as they move up the levels of difficulty, so the complexity of the sentence they'd be asked to read would increase. As you can tell, I might need to do the test myself. So the type of questions may include picking the words you hear. In this particular image, a voice will say to them, leg. So they'd be expected to click on the word leg. They might be able to, ask, read a sentence aloud, and it could be a short sentence at level 1 through to a paragraph at level 5, level 6. And again, the read and act, so instructions asking people to do something. The variety of questions. It would be difficult to show me images of everything, so do have a look at the app itself to see the type of questions that are involved. Speaking questions are scored using our advanced speech recognition technology, which helps us to allows us to auto-mark test results. So it could be that people are asked to read aloud. So in this particular image, the student would be asked to read the sentence that she sees. So we're testing reading and speaking at the same time. They could be asked to listen to a story and then they repeat the story in their own words, which tests their productive skills, or they could be asked to answer a question. So again, a range of questions that will look at the vocabulary, the grammar, the ability to structure sentences. And then that's auto-scored. All of the skills are auto-scored, including writing. So the writing test, people will be asked to complete a range of tasks as they progress. So this could be completing a sentence by filling in the missing word. It could be given a series of pictures and asked to finish the story. They could be asked to write about a picture or hear a story and then write about what they've heard. So it's testing their, it's an open response, which is testing their productive skills. As you can see in this particular image, the test taker is being asked to choose the right words to complete a sentence. So it's a story about children in a park and they're looking at the clouds, and then it might be that Kim found a snail, or it could be Kim finds this. It would have to be Kim found a snail. Sorry. We don't test writing at level 1 because children at such low levels and early stages don't tend to have a lot of experience in writing. So level 1, we tend to focus more on speaking, listening and reading. Excuse me. So really, the reports that we provide are designed to help simplify your teaching. So they all provide scores on a global scale of English, and it's lined up to CFR bands. We provide performance summaries, those recommendations and activities. We also have some additional stretch learning objectives. And we provide these for class and student level. And for student level, you can also see their progress. And right now, I'm going to leave these slides and I'm going to show you what it looks like on the real thing. So can people see? Sophia, can you just confirm that it's possible to see the screen?
Yes, we can see that.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to log in as a teacher. I've been given a password and a username by my admin. So I'm just going to log in. Now, as a teacher, when I log in, I'm presented with a classes list. I should actually say there are 2 roles on the system. There's an administrator role who sets up teachers and can see the history of how you've purchased tests. And then there's the teacher role. A lot of the functionality is similar. In that administrators can do everything a teacher can do, so they can help them out and set up classes and so on if required. So when I log in as a teacher, I'm presented with my view of the classes that I am associated with. I will only be able to see the classes that I manage. So I'll be able to, I have the ability to manage the class, so that's to add students, change information about students in there. I can manage tests, so I can allocate tests to students. So I can see that I can select a level, I can see their previous scores, I can choose a test to give them. I can allocate them in bulk or individually as I want to. And then I can also see the class reports. The batch export allows me to export student reports in bulk, and I have the ability to edit things as well. So what I'm going to focus on at the moment is the class report. Now, the first thing I need to do is choose the date range that I want to cover. So the data we're going to look at is fake data. So it's not going to reveal anything about real students in here. And so I've set the date range that I want to see. So I'm just right, and then so when I look at the class report after I've chosen the date range, I'm presented with an overview, a graphical overview of the students in my class's performance. Now, in this particular class, class 2 is a multi-level class. And I can see the tests that the different levels of tests that the students in the class took. So this is an overview of how the whole class did. I can see their listening ability, their reading, their speaking and their writing. I can see how their abilities line up against the CEFR. I can see how it lines up against the GSE. And I can also see how it lines up with the sort of different levels of difficulty in the English benchmark Young Learner tests. So I can see a graphical overview. If I want to narrow it down to just see the people who took the level 3 test, I can do that. And I can see that the level 3 students vary a bit more, so they may need a bit more help in speaking, but they're quite good at listening. Similarly, I can look at the level 4 results and I can see there that the group of students I get the level 4 to have a slightly greater variety of skills. So it might help me choose what I want. I might decide I want to help them focus on reading. Oops, sorry, I changed my, so I turned my notifications off. Oops, where was I? Sorry, let me go back to the class report. So I want to see, this is, as I say, this is fake data. So it was forced in, so it doesn't behave quite as naturally as your real skills, results from a real test would take. So I get a graphical representation, and I can scroll down to these averages are the average performance for the class by skills, and that's based on the median average of the class. So as I scroll down, I get a list of all of the students in the classes, so I can see their individual scores. Now, if I'm trying to bracket my students together because I want to group them for learning, I could filter, I can sort them in different ways, so I can see their abilities and list them by ability for each particular skill. So with students, I can see the level they took, I can see the results for each skill, and I get an overall average. We don't give an average for class reports, an overall average score for the class, because an average of averages may not be particularly helpful. So we just give the skill averages here. Where you see this particular option, but I'm clicking on by name, lets me list the students in alphabetical order. Now, see there are NSs appearing. If you hover over an NS in the report, it tells you that the result was not scoreable, which basically means that these only appear for speaking, and really means that there was something about that, the background noise or the way the student answered the questions that meant we couldn't detect their voice properly. We couldn't clearly score their answers, and rather than estimating it, we will give it an NS. You may also see BLs. So one of the things we say is when you're choosing the level for a test, don't assume that every student in the same class is at the same level, has the same abilities, even if they're you're teaching them all the same course, because abilities do vary. So you should choose the level for the student. And if a level is too hard, it might be that the listening skills are below the level, so we give a BL for that, which means below level. If a student gets a lot of, got a couple of BLs and NSs, as Jude Birchall has, we won't give them an overall average because it's not really worth providing an average based on 2 scores. If they got 1 BL, for instance, or 1 NS, for instance, as Letitia Schaffner did, we will give an average, but we'll asterisk it so you know what that average was based on 3 skills. So here I can see the students' overall abilities. And if I scroll down, this is where I get to see the formative information, because score is a score, and while you can look it up on the GSE, what's really important is knowing what the student can do. So you'll see the class got an overall listening score on the GSE of 35, and then we give a can-do statement, a performance summary of what they're able to do, and some recommended activities to help them improve, to help them move up a level. So you can see you've got 35 for listening, a 35 for reading, a 36 for writing, and a 35 for speaking. So, and if we look at the performance summary for speaking, it will tell me that students can generally talk about their family and friends, their daily routines, and their basic actions, but in quite a simple way. So they might struggle with topics they're not familiar with, and they don't speak confidently, or they don't have a sufficient range to talk about a young person's wider world, a wider view of the world. So they can only cover simple activities. So it then gives me some recommended activities, such as encourage students to consider and speak about themselves at length, to talk about their relationship with the world, get them to produce some self-descriptions, and then maybe answer questions from classmates. Other activities might include acting out the parts in a picture and giving a classmate instructions to complete a task. So hopefully now we've given you some ideas for how you can help fill those gaps, how you can help the students move on. Which is great, but our teachers are really busy. It might be hard to find the time to plan all of that and to develop the content yourself. So if you're using a Pearson courseware, we have taken those recommendations and we have mapped them to activities in the courseware. So for instance, in this case, we've mapped quite a lot of courses in there. I think there are about 12 at the moment, including all the key ones such as Big English, Wider World, Pop Tropica. But in this case, my class, I'm teaching them Big English. They're on level 5. So I can choose the courseware, and then I can scroll down and I can see activities, so I can go to the student's workbook or their textbook to find activities that they can do. So I can choose some that I want to do with the class to help develop them as a whole, and spend as much time on those activities as you feel is necessary, given what your overall learning aims are. But we do recommend that people practice those activities. They do some practice of those activities before taking the test again, or they may end up with a similar score. One of the other things we provide is a list of suggested GSE learning objectives, and I mentioned the learning objectives in GSE earlier. So in the learning objectives can be used, so these cover the type of activities that students with these skills, with the 35 in listening, for instance, should be able to do. So I could look these up in teacher's mapping booklet and for the course, so I can find activities related in the course to this. Might help me stretch a student, or make sure I have covered certain areas I'm not sure that I have, so I can pull them out of the course. Or if I want to create my own content and my own lessons, I could look these up in the GSE toolkit, which is free and online. So regardless of whether or not you're using the courses, it may help give me ideas for creating my own lessons and my own content. So now I know a lot about the individual, I know about the class, but I still want to know about the individual students. So I'm going to go and look at the red flags here. I should just point out, they indicate that the student was in the class when they took the test, and now they've moved on to another class. But if I'm looking about how the class performed at a particular moment in time, it may be useful to me to see that Penny was in that class and she did particularly well or she did particularly badly, and that might have affected the results. So to say badly, in reality, it just means that she has more learning to do. So I can click on a student's name and I can drill down to see information about that specific student. So here I get the same sort of graphical interface. I can see that Ivan took level 3. I can see what his listening and reading scores. I can see at a glance that they're much lower than his speaking and writing. And because his speaking and writing abilities are high, he's got an average score of 32. So that's an average of all these skills. And he's in the A2 range on the CEFR. And again, I can scroll down and I can see performance summaries that are specific to that, to Ivan. So I can see he can understand basic questions and statements about things and people in the immediate surroundings, that he can understand simple sentences if spoken slowly and clearly with pauses. And it gives me some activities for him. And again, I can pick the course to find activities that will work with Ivan. And then I could discuss the results with Ivan to set some learning goals for him. So as well as taking part in the lessons, everybody in the classes, we're looking at his specific needs. And again, I have learning objectives that may be relevant to Ivan. So I've got this report for me as a teacher. And if I want to share this with the parent, I can just click on the parent button at the top and the report's changed. So now I have the scores are still the same, but now I have some parent-friendly performance summaries which describe what Ivan can do in a language that the parent is more likely to understand. So it says he can understand basic questions about things such as what's this? He can recognise basic time words such as days and months. So it gives the parent more of an idea of what they can do. And we also provide recommended activities that the parent or carer may be able to do with them at home. So it doesn't require textbooks, it doesn't require anything specific or any deep knowledge of teaching to be able to do some of these. So it helps the parents get engaged with the children's learning as well. And one of the other things is we are adding languages as we go, but the report can be made available in some different languages. So if the parent doesn't speak English, it's not a problem. And I admit we only have a few languages in them. We will hopefully be extending that as we move forward. So this is great. I've got a report and a graph. May not be very exciting for the student though. So to help students, help motivate them, we have a range of certificates that are available. So the basics, these certificates of achievement provide information about when the test was taken. It's got his name on it. It tells them the test that they took and gives them their scores. But this might be a bit young for Ivan because Ivan's actually a bit more sophisticated than that. So he'd like a bit more of an adult certificate. He'd like something that looks a bit more certificate. So you have a choice of certificates that you can give. But sometimes because people might not get that average score because they might have got below levels or an S's, we haven't been able to give them an average score, we still want to give them a certificate because otherwise it's really miserable that they're the only students being left out. So they get a certificate of achievement, just says great effort. So they're still getting some form of reward. And again, there is a more grown-up version of it. And one of the other things we've added is because as schools, You want people to, you want parents to remember you, you want other people to see that people took the test. So if you provide us your logo, we can upload it into the system for you and it will appear on the certificates. So as a school or head teacher, it's helping establish your name and your brand as well. Right. So if I go back to the class report, let's choose the right date range. Sorry, I need to choose the right. Whoops. And choose the right year. I can go back to see, I can go back to the class report, and I know that Ivan's taken more than one test. So I might want to see how Ivan's done overall. Sorry, I'm doing this on a class report. I can do this from actually from a different view. I could do this from the managed test report as well. I wanted to show you the managed test screen. So I can see that Ivan has taken previous tests. I can see the results he's got for those tests. But I really want to see Ivan's progress overall. And I can do that. I can just click to get a graph to see this is where he was in listening and speaking, and this is where he is now. The test dates here are the same because this is, as I say, fake data that was forced in at the same time. And if you've taken more tests, I could scroll backwards and forwards to see the results of those tests as well. And I can export it. So I've got a copy of the PDF that I can share with people too. So this means I've got a lot of information that I can share with people. So I'm just going to flip back to my presentation and oops. So I need to check I'm at the right view, the right presentation over. Right. Sophia, can I just check you can see the assessment journey screen?
Yes, everything looks great.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll whip through. Oh, second bit of time, I'm clicking too fast. Apologies for this. I might just try cancelling and coming back to it. This is where you can see the nuts and bolts behind you. You can see all the slides that you've missed that really weren't as interesting as looking at it on the screen. Right. So hopefully you can see my screen again. Can I just check?
See it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. To just briefly, just spend a couple of minutes talking about how the test works. So in the learning cycle, you give students the practice tests and questions at the start to familiarise them with the test. You give them the first test, you review the results, and you look at it along with other data, including any course-based assessments done and knowledge you have of the student. And then you can plan the learning. So you can plan the learning for the entire group. If we go down the left-hand side, you can plan the learning for the individual student. So you can look at the class, you can look at the student's needs, you can group and differentiate them as you need to. Then you use your courseware, or just if you're using your own courses, you do your teaching, maybe look at your carry out your course-based assessment, which will tell you how well they're mastering each unit of the course you're teaching. And then after a period of time, you would give them a second benchmark test to do. So you get an overview of their proficiency again, you see how they've moved on. And we do advise you leave 120 hours between tests as a minimum. the amount of time will vary depending on the level they're at. And we have a user guide which covers all of this in detail. So if when you're trying to say, well, how long should I leave between tests? What test levels should I give them? There is information in there. So once I've taken the second test, you can review the results and review your planning for your lessons and for the student. So it fits really well into the learning cycle, and some people like to use it twice a year, some may use it 3 times a year. I'd say student, you need to know which level to give the student, so we provide information in the guide. Each level of English benchmark covers a different range, but there's a big overlap. As you can see, level 1 goes from 10 to 27 and level 2 from 16 to 34. So there is a big overlap between them. And that is partly because, you know, a reading skill could be lower than a speaking skill. So you need that overlap in there. So generally we would say start at level 1 unless students have done more than 240 hours of learning in English, or you have other evidence showing what their abilities are, particularly against the GSE or the CEFR. Or maybe they're coming from English as a second language or a bilingual context, so they already have a lot of experience in English and are exposed to it a lot. But again, I will emphasise, please leave enough time between taking tests to measure progress. And it takes about 100. Pearson has carried out research that shows that in order to move up 3 points on the GSE scale, generally the minimum amount of learning is 120 hours. There is more information about the research. So the test, quickly say, Pearson administrators set you up on the web-based school portal. Use the portal to create classes, assign tests, generate the test codes. You can monitor the progress the student is making through the test on the pupil, so you can on the portal, sorry. So you can see when they started it, when it's in progress, and you can see that it's been scored. Bit of best practice. Download the benchmark app to each tablet in advance. Potentially download the test content in advance. If your Wi-Fi is not great, then it just takes a couple of minutes to download the test content. In fact, it generally takes less than that, but depending on your Wi-Fi, it could take a bit more time. So if you've got a lot of students trying to download content at the same time, it could take a couple of minutes. So download the app and the content if you can. Use the sample questions and practice tests to familiarise the children with the tests, the format, and with wearing the headphones. I have seen students, when we piloted English Benchmark, I did see a couple of students chewing on the microphone headset. So with younger children, it's good to get them familiar with how to wear the headsets and the level at which to speak. Also, you need to make sure you've got a suitable, quiet test room. So not lots of noise going on, not lots of loud air conditioning that could impact the quality of the recorded spoken answers. And you need to have the students sitting 2 to 3 meters apart. And we advise 2 to 3 meters apart because students can distract each other, but also the sound might carry if a student is talking particularly loudly. And this is the ideal test setup. So you have the tablet on the stand and you have a headset with a microphone boom. And just using earbuds and an inline mic, it isn't going to be very effective because it's likely to pick up all the noise that's going on around in the room. So that's a little bit about best practice. So to sum up, what is English language, young learners? It's a world-class English test that you can take when you need to in the comfort of your classroom. So you can view class and student reports to measure progress. You can get formative information, so you get can-do statements, recommendations and ideas for lessons to help you plan that future learning. because it's taken online, it's already written, so you don't have to spend time creating tests. It's a reliable test because it's taken by experts, and you don't have to spend time marking tests, which means teachers can spend time with the classroom. It helps take the stress out of testing for students because it's quite an engaging test. It's on an app, it has those gamification features, and then you get results at the end that you can share with students and parents, so you can demonstrate the efficacy of your programme. And that's it. That's it for me. So any questions?
Thanks, Marian, for that really, really interesting, comprehensive look at this test. Let me just pull up the questions that we've received. So somebody has asked about motivation. How would students be motivated? And they've highlighted particularly during the speaking test. Yeah, these young students, how do we win them motivation-wise?
Well, I think that's a really good question, because especially young students might be nervous about speaking out loud, but other people may be able to hear their answers. But if you go through the sample questions with them and you do the unscored practice tests with them in the class, then they get more used to that. But also, because they're wearing their headsets, once they start doing the test and they engage with it, they tend to become more comfortable with actually answering the questions and don't pay as much attention as to what's going on around them. What I didn't say is there are 6 levels of testing, there are 5 forms per level, and those forms are randomized. When you assign a test level to people in the class, they're randomized. So student 1 may get level 3 form 1, student 2 would get level 3 form 2, the next student gets form 3, next student gets form 4. So the system knows which test which student got, so next time student 1 gets a test, they won't get level 3 form 1. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because it means that students aren't getting the same questions at the same time. So it reduces that sort of impetus to try and what are they saying, listen in and try and hear what other people are saying. There's no point because you're not necessarily getting the same question. But yeah, practice, I think, getting the students used to it. That's really the way to encourage them to speak out. Does that answer the question? Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Somebody's asked here, what is the average duration of an English benchmark young learners assessment?
So the level 1 test, each level test takes a different amount of time. Our user guide tells you the amount of time each test takes. So level 1, from start to finish, takes about 16 minutes. And level 5, for instance, takes 40 minutes. So the length of the test increases as the students move up. It's because the number of questions increases and the type of answer they give. So instead of giving a one-word answer or writing one word or clicking on a word, you're having to write in an open box. You're having to write some text in there. So it does vary with the test. Each item, each answer, each question is timed. So students have a fixed period of time to answer each question, and there's a little timer on the test that shows them how they're doing time-wise. So if they take a long time to answer, it reflects that they're not that proficient. So that's taken into account in the scoring. So yeah, depends on the level. 16 minutes for level 1 up to 40-45 for level 6.
Great, thank you. We have a question here about adult learners. Do we have something similar with the same kind of principles, but for adults rather than young learners?
We have just launched the benchmark test, which is for 14-year-olds plus, so that's suitable for higher secondary and adults. It's not taken on an app, it's taken on a PC, and it gives you the same type of information, but it doesn't rely on gamification as much to engage people. But there is a benchmark test for adults as well. It works in some ways, levels of test.
We have a few questions about pricing. Now, for pricing, I think people need to speak to their local Pearson representative, because that varies according to region.
And the number of tests you're buying and whether you're buying it with other products as well. So
yeah, but there is an app, isn't there, Marian, that you can, a free app that you can download so you can look at the item types.
Yeah, so search for benchmark test on Google Play or on the Apple App Store. And in fact, the marketing website for English Benchmark Young Learners contains links that will take you directly to those stores, but it is only for a tablet. People commonly look for it on their phones. It's not there on the phones. It doesn't work for phones. You've got to use an Android or an iPad.
We have a question here. How will you make sure that the person who takes the assessment is really the person who answers the test?
Well, we're talking about young learners at this point, so this isn't a formal exam, but ultimately it is the teacher giving the student a test to do. So if the students are in the classroom, you will know who you are giving the test to.
Yeah.
If you were doing it remotely, but this is really built for use in the classroom, it's possible it can be used remotely as well. But if you're doing it remotely, then you really need to trust that the parents and the students aren't cheating.
And finally, I think we've got time for one more question. How would you summarise in just a couple of sentences what the benefits are of automated scoring for teachers? Why should they choose a computer-based test rather than a paper-based test?
Okay, it's fast. You get the results really quickly. So it saves you lots of time spent marking. You've got 30 children in a class, you have to mark all of those questions. It's going to take a long time to do. So 1, it's fast. 2, because of the way the items are scored, we don't just say they got 10 out of 90, they got 50% right. We're giving you those, we're combining the results of different answers together to give you an overview of their abilities, which is an advantage that we get from the auto scoring. And I think one of the questions is, how can we trust this scoring? The AI learns from human beings. So human people have taken the test, they've answered the questions. Human markers have assessed the results and scored them, and the systems have learned from that, so that they will provide consistent marking. Because let's face it, people can have good days and bad days, and people might mark things slightly differently in the morning to the afternoon. A computer's not going to do that, so the results are always going to be consistent. So speed, consistency, and that ability to sum up the scores and draw conclusions about ability.
That's great, thank you so much. That's it. I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much again, Marian, for your time and that really in-depth, comprehensive and interesting session. And thank you everyone for joining us today. You'll receive an email shortly with a recording of this session and a certificate of attendance. Please take a look at the rest of the programme. We still have some sessions to go, and we have recordings of past sessions on our website as well, so take a look at those. These sessions are free. They're running every Tuesday until the 8th of September. So please take a look online, sign up for some more sessions, and we'll hope to see you at another one very soon, and we'll close it there. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.